Here we are talking and analyzing Apprentice Season 2. We're on the 4th episode, so we won't be doing singular videos as we did on Season 1. Season 2 is full of deranged women with horrible... these are some of the worst women I've ever seen. They are not skilled. They are evil. They... Actually, in this third episode, the first episode was making a toy. There was no creativity. There was no innovation. And there was stale creation of, nothing. It was just really not good. And in that episode, what stood out was Mosaic. So it's Mosaic and it's Apex. And Mosaic is the guy's name and Apex is the woman's team. And in this season, one male goes over to the women's team and one female goes over to the male team. The woman on the Mosaic, which is the male team, is deranged, abusive to children, and not only does she say something abusive in the first episode, she talks bad about children through little digs throughout other episodes when she's on camera. There was an instant where she's sitting in the car and she talks badly about a child again. So she has something against children, and she's a female. The Asian named Ivana is a mentally ill, deranged individual, and the women join forces to abuse one particular woman named Stacy J. The first episode was about making toys with Toys R Us. The second episode was about selling ice cream. And the third episode was about selling Crest toothpaste. The second episode, where I think Ivanka was actually in charge of she's a project manager for Apex, which is the girls' team, eavesdropped and stole ideas from the male team to sell the ice cream in Times Square. They were then they were confronted by a man who's actually making a living selling off of a street cart. And they made him wrong for law and order. And in the room, Trump says, "Well, you didn't win." And that was everything Trump says when they're at the table is a setup to... It's almost like being a lawyer. These people are supposed to be lawyers. They're supposed to have law degrees. Well, the law says that that's his sidewalk. And then you can't argue with that. And Trump understands that. But these people don't live by the law. They live by what's in it for them and how are they going to win. And the women in this particular season are malicious, they are vile, and they are incompetent. There are even women in there that I don't even know these women's names, but they're definitely not up to any form of business mentality, which is a development from the first season to the second season in the awareness game of what's currently happening on influencer platform. Their idea of selling toothpaste was to invite a elite celebrity, baseball star, who's very popular in New York City because he played for the Mets at the time. And they blamed him for their lack of success instead of taking responsibility. He was a hired personnel that required a certain amount of money. And instead of budgeting for audience, they wanted to meet the celebrity. So they used the money to give to the gentleman, who they then had, which was super awkward and super strange, brush his teeth in front of all these people using the toothpaste, and then gave his opinion on the toothpaste. That's not a professional move. That was not something that I would, as a professional in the dental field, that was embarrassing for Crest and for the baseball celebrity. I was appalled for him, and he's highly respected, by the way. So this all falls on the shoulders of the women's team called Apex. I wanted to bring up that the first episode, the remote control car versus a action figurine, the women won the first episode. The women won the competition because they made a remote control car, which is common sense, off of Bradford's idea, which is the person that would have immunity on the second episode. On the second episode, Donald Trump could sense something awkward and uncomfortable in the group with Stacey J. While they called Stacey J crazy, however, Stacey J wasn't crazy. The women were effing crazy. Moving on to the results of the second episode was that Bradford decides to give up his immunity, and then Ivanka makes him come back into the boardroom because she doesn't think he's going to get voted off. But that was a setup for Ivanka to see what kind of business professional she is. So this is about giving and showing your skills as a business professional, to see what you'd be willing to do to somebody else so that you think you could succeed, but you're failing miserably. And so Bradford was brought back into the room, the boardroom, with Ivanka, with some girl that I don't know what her name is, and Stacey J. But see, Ivanka is trying to convince Trump to get rid of Stacey J. And so she thinks because everybody's anti-Stacey J, that Trump is going to just take her word for it and get rid of Stacey J. All human behavior skills of a horrible workforce of how women operate in business to show you men how women operate in business. This is actually the point of the whole series. So what happens in this particular episode is Donald Trump is floored by Bradford's decision to decide to go into the firing ring to get fired. And so he makes the decision, an executive decision, that because of the snake in the room, which is Ivanka, who's Asian, by the way, he decides to fire Bradford to teach Bradford a lesson that you never trust a woman. We then see the women of this. I do not like this Apex team. Can you tell? The next thing I see in either episode 2 or I think it was episode 2, they're all sitting around in a circle discussing Stacey J, coming up with a plan on how to get Trump to fire her. And as soon as she sits down, and she's done nothing. She is I think she was in the restaurant business, and she ends up walking in the room while this is how real business, this is how you operate at VaynerMedia. This is how you all operate at Procter & Gamble. This is how you operate at a dental office. You all do this. What they then did was, as soon as Stacey J walks up to the group, they all scatter as if they aren't doing anything wrong, when they all know that they're all out of integrity because they haven't addressed the situation to the person specifically. So what they do is they just talk about people behind their back while stealing people's ideas, which is what Apex is showing. They go into the ice cream, because we're bouncing around. We're in a whole series here. We're in 3 episodes. Then we watch, in this same episode, we watch the female who's on the male team called Mosaic disrespect the vendor who makes the ice cream, wanting to know how production is made, like it makes any difference. Now, in this particular case, what we're dealing with this specific instance makes no difference. You're not walking the streets talking about the production process. You're there to you're there for a specific job, which means that she doesn't follow directions. So I think Rob gets voted off on the first episode. Bradford, 2 men, Bradford on the second, and then I think Stacey J ends up getting fired on the third because all the women come together in the room and they come together to attack her, to tell her how crazy she is, because she got irritated and frustrated because they were all backstabbing her to her face and behind her back. This is how women operate. And this is what these episodes are demonstrating for all of you who are interested on how influencer marketing is operating, because they're the same. They don't ever grow. They just do this